Well, back to this project that I'm building for this friend of mine. This is a 97 12 valve Cummins. It's got the P pump on it, the P7100 injection pump. And I'm kind of want to get this motor done and out of my garage because I got some of my own stuff that I want to work on. I want to pull the head off the 24 valve Cummins and get it sent off for porting and polishing. This is the motor that's going in Project Black Betty that the Skyjacker lift kit's going to be going on. So anyhow, back to this 12 valve here. Like I said, today we're going to be setting up this P pump on this Cummins here and getting this pump in time. This is the P pump, the P7100 injection pump. And as you can see, the shaft has a slot cut in for a keyway, which that means absolutely squat because on the gear there is no hole for a keyway for the gear. So these P pumps are kind of a strange kind of a way on timing an injection pump. Unlike the VE pumps and the VP44 pumps, it's just a little bit different. On the back of the cam gear, this is actually the cam gear that I'm touching right here on the other side. So there's a pin that you're supposed to be able to push in and get it all set up for an alignment. Well, the problem is with these little pins, they're kind of cheesy and they are plastic. This piece right here is plastic. Well, if you don't release this pin and you go to turn that motor, this little plastic pin breaks off the end, which whenever I took this motor apart, I've seen that somebody's already broke the pin off the end. So I've done a quick little repair on this thing, and this is temporary. After I'm done with it, this pin will go away and I'm going to replace it with a new pin. But unlike everything else, I am waiting on head bolts and a head gasket and some other parts. But this is a temporary fix. Like I said, this is a machine bolt that I drilled a hole into the center of this pin here, and I threaded it down in there, and then took a die grinder and cut it off and cleaned everything up. So whenever this pin goes in, it'll actually engage into the back of the cam gear, and that's part of the setup for getting this P pump in time. And is what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn the front of the motor and push this pin in as I go. So right there it locks into place. Do not forget to release this pin before you turn the motor. If you turn the motor with that pin in there, you're going to break that plastic tip off there every time, and it's going to fall down to the bottom of the oil pan. So just remember your keys engaged before you turn your motor. So with the keyway being pushed in there, you should have your piston at the top dead center. And then one other thing here, your timing marks should line up on your camshaft and your crankshaft. There's 1 0 on the crankshaft and there's 2 zeros on the camshaft, and it should be perfectly in line there. But if your motor's completely put together and you change out your injection pump, you're not going to see that. But keep that in mind. So before we slide our P pump into our timing gear cover, is what we got to do here is come in here and change this O-ring out on the front of this injection pump. One thing that you want to do after installing your new O-ring on the front here is take some machine oil or motor oil and go on ahead and put on the front of this seal here, this O-ring, and smear it around. This injection pump does weigh a lot, so make sure you got a good grip on it before you start trying to slide it in the hole here. And it takes just 4 nuts to hold this injection pump on, and 1 on the bracket on the bottom. So this here is the injection pump set up on the motor. Right here there's a plug on the back of the injection pump. Is what we want to do, and I've already broke this loose, is pull this plug out right here. Okay, this little plug right here is actually the tool that we're going to use to time this with. So it's just a matter of taking this tool, flipping this tool around, and putting in this plug the other way. So as you can see, wipe this off, as you can see there's a little slot in here, before we can put this plug back in the hole now, we actually have to find the basically top dead cylinder of the injection pump. So by looking in this hole, and I'm going to try to give you guys a shot. I don't know if we can do this or not, but we're going to try here. Let me see if I can get my flashlight shined in there. I'm going to turn the injection pump by the front where the nut is, and we're going to see if we can show you guys what's going on here. Okay, you guys see that right there? See if I can hold my light still. You see that right there? That's top dead cylinder on this injection pump, guys. So what we want to do, we want to get that right there in the center of the hole. And this little pin that we actually we flipped around here, guys, we're going to put it in this way this time. You got to go straight in with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the injection pump a little bit both ways to make sure that pin is set in the hole there. Okay, as you can see, it pushed in a little bit when I worked this pump. Now the injection pump is at its lockdown position. So what we're going to do now is take our little nut here that we pulled out of the injection pump. We're going to put this nut back on. And this don't have to be super tight. I'm just going to kind of run her down there just a little bit, just snug her up just a hair. And this pin right here has the motor on top dead cylinder. So what we're going to do here next, boys and girls, is we're going to put our gear on our injection pump. And if you guys remember, we've already got our motor on top dead cylinder here. The piston sitting right here at the highest point it can be, and our marks are lined up on our camshaft and our crankshaft gears. We got our pin locked into the back of the cam gear here, and we got our injection pump locked down right now. You guys got to be careful when you go to torquing this nut down on this injection pump, because you'll break both your pins, the one inside of your injection pump, and you'll break the pin back here on the back of your camshaft. So it doesn't matter at this time what position this gear goes on. There's no dots to line it up. There's no keyway. You just put your gear on here, and you put your lock washer on there, which I got to dig for one. The one that was on here was broken, and then we're going to put our nut on there. Make sure you follow along for the torquing procedure, because if you ain't careful, you're going to break everything inside there, and then you're going to be tearing your injection pump apart. At this point here, I've torqued this nut down to 30 pounds on this injection pump. So that's 30 pounds right there. So the next step, we want to go on ahead and unlock all of our tools that we got set in our motor here. We want to make sure to pull this pin back and it's in the unlock position. And we want to come back in here into our injection pump and flip this pin back around now. This pin, they get a little sticky in there, so you can grab onto it with a pair of pliers. Do not scar this pin. Just a little bit of pressure on it will be okay. Like I said, just make sure that you do not scar the end of this pin right here. And then, so after we get it pulled out, it came out this way with the tool on this end. We're going to want to run the tool back in this cap in this position, and then go on ahead and put our plug back in. So on the P7100 injection pumps and the P3000 injection pumps, this nut gets torqued down to 122 pounds. So that's 122 pounds, and is what we're going to do to double check ourselves is I'm going to get my timing marks down here, line back up to pretty much top dead center, and come back on the back side and make sure my pin is lockable and then I'm going to pull that tool out of the injection pump and flip it around and make sure we're still in line with everything. So what I've done here is rotated the motor a little bit, the crankshaft just a little bit, until my pin went back into its slot right here. So it's locked back in right there. I've pulled the plug back out of the injection pump here, and I want to double check to make sure that it's still in line. And as you can see, this little tab up there in the inside of the injection pump, you can still see it lined up. And I just want to go on ahead and put my little tool in there one more time to make sure it's perfectly aligned. And that's the tool on the inside of the cap. So if this will slide all the way in, you're still in line, and that there is all the way in, so it's still in line. You just want to make sure when you're done with your little locking pins that you put them back in their proper positions, like this in here. After you pull it out, just make sure that it goes back into the cap with the slot going towards the inside of the cap, and then make sure your copper washer is still on there. Well, here at the bottom of the injection pump there's a little T fitting, and you got to hook this up into the block here so your injection pump can get oil. Anyway, at the bottom of this thing there's an O-ring, so just make sure you change your O-ring out. And you do not have to put Teflon on that fitting, since it is a O-ring style fitting. So anyway, I'm just going to run this T in there and hook up this hose so we can get some oil to our injection pump. So what I've done so far is put the fuel pump on and torque the bolts down. They torque down to 18 pounds as well. There's a lot of bolts on this motor that torque down to 18 pounds. And next we're going to throw the motor mounts on, and I've got to look at the torque specs for those yet, but I'm sure it's not going to be any 18 pounds that hold the motor mounts on. Well guys, I got to get some more parts before I can continue with this build on this 12 valve. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe, and if you like my videos, give a thumbs up, and we'll be back here in a couple of days as soon as I get some more parts. We'll see you later.